Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's Spider video. We're going to have a look at weather for the next 10 to 14 days. For today's Spider video, day 10 will take us to the 22nd of January, and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS ensembles. They run around a couple of weeks. We'll have a look at the CFS-V2 at the end of the video for the next 4 weeks. That gets us into the early part of February, and I shall get on with that for you in a moment. Just say about the first video today was the 6 AM upload, and we've also released European Outlook as well, so please check out those two videos if you'd like to do that. Like, share, subscribe on vids. Thank you so much everybody for doing that. We'll have plenty on the by the way, stratospheric developments in the first part of this video. But before we do anything else, I want to say thank you so much to Celine. Thank you so much to Celine D for giving a super thanks on last night's live stream. They did a live stream yesterday, live streamed our 10 to 14 days, so it was a lovely live stream. Thank you so much to all of you who was on the live stream, made it, really nice stream. And afterwards, Celine in the comments provided or gave us a super thanks. So thank you so much to Celine for the super thanks. That's amazing and incredible. Thank you so much, Celine, for doing that. If you'd like to give a super thanks, what you need to do is find the thanks button. It will either be as a tab here, somewhere near the thumbs up and share buttons, or it will be hidden behind the three little spots there. So either way, you can find a super thanks and you can give a thanks in the comments. You'll get your comment flagged up, as you can see there, and you'll get a shout out in the subsequent videos afterwards. Thank you so much, Celine and everyone. But then right, okay, let's crack on then. We'll start off with the temperature at 10 HPA currently, which is colder than average. This is from the JMA. So the grey line is a trend line this time of year, up where stratospheric temperature at 10 HPA should be lifting up. We can see with the black line where we've been with the temperature at 10 HPA through the season and where we currently are. So generally, since back into November, we've been colder than average a lot of the time with the temperature at 10 HPA. We're currently around minus 80 just there. We should be somewhere around minus 60, so we are significantly colder than normal, at around 20 degrees colder than average at 10 HPA. And of course, excuse me, that is associated with a strengthening of the polar vortex. And it's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons we've had quite a mild and zonal first half to January. If we go a little bit lower down to 30 HPA, there we can see it is also very cold as well. The temperature is somewhere around minus 85 at the moment. At 30 HPA, it's a bit closer to the troposphere. And this time of year, we should be somewhere close to minus 70. So we're around 20 degrees colder than average at 10 HPA. Around 15 degrees colder than average at 30 HPA. And as I say, that is associated with a strengthened stratospheric polar vortex. So let's have a quick look at today's two GFS operational runs, see what they're forecasting for temperatures at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over North Pole over the next couple of weeks. We are having our opening salvo warming over Siberia at the moment. There it is. Not going to do anything really other than maybe in a couple of days displace the polar vortex a little bit, but generally, excuse me again, this doesn't reach the required sort of level to have much of an impact. However, it is the opening salvo warming. It tells us that things are beginning to happen in the stratosphere, at high latitudes. Anyway, we go through the next few days. We keep those blue and purple colours rooted over the pole. Those will be cold temperatures at their roots in the stratosphere. Of course, you see that by this time next week, the polar vortex is becoming a little bit stretched there with those blue and purple because the first one is sort of fading out over the Northern Pacific, and another warming beginning to start developing over parts of Europe. So off we go into the extended range, and this second warming becomes very, very significant over Northern Europe and eventually into Siberia in around 10 days' time, and really starts to intensify them as we go into the final week of January, producing those deep deep red colours and start over Siberia and starting to penetrate them in towards the North Pole as well. That is a very, very significant warming of the stratosphere taking place there. And as I say, that is penetrating into the pole as well. We haven't split the polar vortex, but we have quite severely displaced it and stretched it out almost to breaking point. So I don't think we have to wait too much longer after this to find a split begin to occur in the PV there. So very significant developments with that, what looks like a sudden stratospheric warming taking place over Siberia and into the Arctic. As we go into the last week of January. Now that is the GFS midnight run. This is GFS 6 there, and again starting off very similar. We've got this minor open salvo warming currently taking place over Siberia, but not having much impact on the blue and purple colours, the cold temperature 10 HPA in the stratosphere, at the moment. Now we go through into around a week's time. So the first warming fades out over the Pacific. Next warming begins to gather a pace over Europe. Starting to get worse out today. And stretching out too much magic water. And stretching out the polar vortex. There with both blue and purple colours into the extended range. Check this out. Another really significant stratospheric warming occurring there from around day 10 onwards. And again, that does start to penetrate in towards the North Pole there, displacing the polar vortex at its roots from the pole out into towards North America and the North Atlantic. So again, that looks like a very, very, very significant warming of the stratosphere taking place there on the GFS 6Z operation run, similar in fashion to the midnight operational GFS run. But GFS operations at the moment are producing this very significant warming in the last week of January. Virtually every run being very consistent about it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's right, though. It could be consistently wrong with this, but I think the evidence is growing of a major development taking place in the stratosphere at 10 HPA in the final week of January. Let's go through the GFS ensemble members. This is the control run. Again, this is producing very, very significant warming of the stratosphere over Siberia and moving it in towards the North Pole in the last week of January. This is ensemble member number 1, also doing something similar, although perhaps not quite to the same extent. Ensemble member number 2. Again, looking very significant and moving that warming into the North Pole itself as well. Ensemble member number 3. Again, very, very significant warming of the stratosphere there in the final week of January. Ensemble member number 4 does something similar too. Ensemble member number 5, excuse me, looks like this. And again, that's producing very significant warming of the stratosphere in the final week of January. Ensemble member number 6. Again, very significant warming. And the important thing with this is that not only is this very significant warming happening on most ensemble members of Siberia, most of them are now starting to move it into the North Pole as well, which would, start to have an effect on the zone of winds. Ensemble member number 7. Doing something very similar also. Ensemble member number 8 looks like that. That also going in the same direction. Ensemble member number 9. Not quite to the same extent with that ensemble member. Ensemble member number 10. Looks like that. That doesn't go quite to the same level either. Ensemble member number 11. Now that produces quite a significant warming, but doesn't quite get into the pole. That takes it more towards the Pacific Canadian side. Ensemble member number 12. Looks like that. Very significant warming with that one. Ensemble member number 13. Also doing something very similar. Ensemble member number 14. Again, very, very similar, very significant warming of the stratosphere there over Siberia, heading in toward the pole with that one as well. Ensemble member number 15. Again, very significant warming. Ensemble member number 16. Again, that's going in the same direction too. Ensemble member number 17. Again, that's going in the same direction also. Ensemble member number 18 going in the same direction. Ensemble member number 19 look very bullish now, don't they, with this warming on, looks like that. Look very bullish now with this warming. Ensemble member number 20. Oh wow, that's doing something a little bit different, but look what that's doing. So that's a very strange. That's very strange what that's doing. So it's producing a very significant warming strategy, but doing it in a different way. And pretty much gets rid of the polar vortex by the end. So I've never seen a SSW happen like that, actually. If that came up, that would be really bizarre. Clearly that is an outlier within the suite, though. But again, very significant development. Going in the same direction, just doing it in a different fashion. Ensemble member number 21, looks like that. Ensemble member number 22. Again, all going in the same direction, aren't they? Or nearly all of them, anyway. Ensemble member number 23. A little bit more toned down with that one. Ensemble member number 24. That one's pretty much going in the same direction. Ensemble member number 25. Again, looks to be going in the same direction, really. Ensemble member number 26. Yep, that's going in the same direction, really. Ensemble member 27. Same direction. Ensemble member number 28. Looks like that. Again, very significant warming. Ensemble member number 29. That's taking a little bit longer to get there, but does eventually get to a very significant warming over Siberia. And finally, ensemble member number 13. Looks like that. So maybe that one's a little bit more toned down, keeping things restricted more towards Siberia. But these are very significant developments for the 5 week of January that we're seeing within the GFS ensembles right now. So we wait and see what effects that could have if it comes off. We are beginning to see a significant weakening of zonal winds within the GFS ensembles as well. This is from weatheriscool.com. So currently the zonal wind, of course, much stronger than average, as we know. Where that blue line is the current strength of the zonal wind at 10 HPA, so it's well above average where the black line is. The GFS ensembles are the green lines here. So initially, for the next week or so, very strong with the zonal wind. However, we do see that as we go into the last week of January, several of the GFS ensemble members now are producing a significant weakening of zonal winds. Any ensemble member that goes to that 20 line just there in producing a significant weakening of zonal winds. And one ensemble member going for a reversal of zonal winds just there. So we have at the moment got one GFS ensemble member going for an actual reversal of zonal winds, which would be, a formal and official southern stratospheric warming if we reverse the zonal wind at 10 HPA. So got one ensemble member with a reversal of zonal winds, several going for either a modest reduction of zonal winds or a significant reduction of zonal winds. And interesting developments in the stratosphere. It looks like the last week of January might start to produce certainly a very significant stratospheric warming, possibly even a sudden stratospheric warming, which will keep you updated, of course. Central temperature is updated to yesterday, the 11th of January, currently sitting at 7.7, which is just under 4 degrees above average. That is unchanged from yesterday. So have been a very, very mild first half to January, of course. That will soon be on its way out. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. We'll look at Sheffield today. Red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Sheffield, starting off around to a little bit above average at the moment. From the weekend onwards, we find the upper air temperatures dropping. We've got a colder period to come. The third week of January going colder than average for the first time since the middle of December. Into a last week of January, into a last week of January, there is a recovery in the upper air temperatures taking place then. However, it might not be that straightforward. I'll talk about that in a moment. Precipitation-wise, going to be very unsettled over the next week as well. So initially mild, so rain, but as it goes colder through here, there's still plenty of precipitation spikes, and there will be risk of not only rain but also potentially some snow as we go through the course of next week. Now into the last week of January, things look as though they're drying out. So upper air temperatures rising, easing up on the precipitation spikes. That suggests higher pressure starting to build in through the last week of January. We see this on the sea level pressure ensemble graph. So starting off with pretty low pressure at the moment, and over next week, but into the last week of January, pressure rising to between 1,020 and 1,040 millibars. So this tells us that high pressure is likely to be building into the last week of January, and that might keep things quite cold. It just depends on the exact orientation of that high pressure, if it comes off, and the air mass within it. But even though the upper air temperatures are looking up there in the last week of January, we might start to, or might keep things quite cold. And look at snow row for Sheffield next week. Wow, very impressive. I would suggest that pretty much every ensemble member is going for snow there for Sheffield, between around the 16th and the 20th of January. There are some pretty big spikes as well that will produce quite a lot of snow if they came off. So I think we might well be doing snow watch before too much longer, maybe over the weekend or early next week. After that, the snow risk does ease off a bit for the last week of January, as of course higher pressure would kill off any snow possibilities, as would an increasing upper air temperature, even if it's still cold on the surface. Temperature anomalies on the 12th to 20th of January, going to be about average, but cold and average up in the north. And precipitation anomalies from the 12th to 20th of January, wetter than average in the northern half of the country. Later information from urbannorthschool.net shows that for the moment we're still driving in low pressure and mild air from off the Atlantic, winds in from the west today. So it's slightly cooler than the southwest as we had yesterday, but still relatively mild really. Right, so let's start going through chart data. Remember, so the UK met Euro run lots for midnight on Sunday. Low pressure is in the North Sea, and we bring down a cold northerly wind on Sunday. And then into Monday, a trough of low pressure will move into that colder air, possibly bringing something a little bit, more generally wintry across the country through the early part of next week. But it looks like an unstable northwesterly to northerly polar maritime air mass, and so there will be possibilities for not only rain but also sleet and snow popping up at relatively short notice. The devil, of course, is going to be in the detail with this, and we won't know until closer to the time frame where the snow is going to be. Just generally, I would say the further north you go and the more elevated you are, the greater your risk of snow. But that's not to say that, on low ground in the south there won't be any snow. Even there, I think there could be some snow next week. That's how we get that snow to get to if the UK met Euro to midnight on Thursday and still bring down that cold northerly wind then. Icon looks like that. Again, low pressure clearing away to our east on Sunday. Starts to pull in some colder air from the north. Then we go into a cold and unstable scenario for the early part of next week with these troughs of low pressure, enhancing the risk of not only rain but also some sleet and snow in the early part of next week as we keep that cold air coming from the north. Eventually, Icon begins to back wind into west, so milder air starts to move in from off the Atlantic, but that might not be straightforward. A weather system moving into that cold air might bring some snow, at least for a while, before it turns back to rain. The GFS midnight run, again, with low pressure clearing away to the east on Sunday, turning wind into that colder northerly direction through the early part of next week. Low pressure digging in from the Atlantic. So cold, unstable, rain, sleet and snow possibilities through the early part of next week with this area of low pressure putting cold air down from the north. And the GFS midnight rain keeps it cold pretty much throughout the whole of next week actually. By Friday, the low pressure's away to the east, reaching in the Atlantic and still bringing in that cold northern wind back lasting to the weekends of the 21st, 22nd of January. Eventually, some milder air begins to start moving back into northwest parts of Scotland. As we head beyond day 10, then we go into a drier spell of weather with high pressure setting up over the top of the country. Not necessarily all that mild. The upper air temperatures would have lifted up with this, but under the high pressure, that could be producing the gruesome twosome. We could be getting some frost and fog there over that area of high pressure. Staying anticyclonic up to the end of GFS midnight run gets us to the 28th of January. This is the precipitation forecast based on that GFS midnight run from the weather outlook. So rain initially. As we get into weekend, that's when it starts turning colder. Showers turning wintry on Saturday in the north. Still just rain down in the south. On Sunday, those wintry showers become a little bit more widespread. And then into the early part of next week. Again, this is Monday, so rain in the south, sleet and snow further northwards, and through next week the risk of snow increases. At Tuesday, even down in the south, there could be a little bit of snow coming through by then. That's into Wednesday as well. Don't take this too literally. Don't take the areas of snow too literally. It's too far away for that kind of detail. Just a suggestion that next week looks pretty wintry. It's not a severe cold air mass, so there will be rain mixed in, probably modification, particularly in coastal areas, down south and whatnot. But there will be a risk of snow, I think, in many areas through, particularly like Tuesday, Wednesday, middle part of next week. Southwards GFS 6Z is looking again below pressure off into the North Sea on Sunday, bring down that cold and unstable northerly wind through the early part of next week. That's Wednesday, low pressure sitting in the channel then and bringing like an easterly wind, so looking pretty cold and wintry there through the middle part of next week. Stays cold up to the end of next week, and then a little bit different with the GFS 6 there, in that away from northern Scotland anyway, where it does turn milder, we actually don't really turn things milder. We don't entrench that milder air in, actually, because we keep the ridge through the country and going to our east. So that will keep things cold up to day 10, especially for Ireland, England and Wales. Remember, in the extended range with GFS 6 then also as that big area of high pressure over the country, which I think looks very much like frost and fog would be likely there in the last week of January. Eventually, we finish up looking like that, 28th of January. So it started to bring some milder air up from the southwest end, but notice heights are rising to the north. Could that be in response to the stratospheric warming? Probably not. I don't think the SSW would have had enough of an impact, up to that point to be changing the scenario around Greenland and whatnot. But it's interesting, it is raising the heights by the end of the GFS 6Z run at high latitudes. This is a precipitation forecast based on that GFS 6Z run, again from the weather outlook. So initially rain over the weekend. That's when the first wintry showers start appearing on Saturday in the north. Sunday looks like that, so a little bit more widespread with both wintry showers, and then early next week, rain through the channel, snow through parts of Wales, southern England as well, wintry showers elsewhere. That Tuesday, though, there's a risk of snow even down the south there, Tuesday into Wednesday, quite marginal, but the possibility is there. And then into the second half of next week, keeping it cold with further wintry showers at times before things start to turn a little bit less cold, but turn drier mainly, as we move up towards day 10 and whatnot. This is GS. If you're enjoying this video, then please can you like, share, subscribe. This is an epic video. I hope you're enjoying it, everybody. It's rather extended, this one, but there's a lot going on. There's a lot to talk about. I hope you're enjoying it. Right, GM, please give us a sub if you are. GM, looks like that, low pressure away to the east, pulling down colder air from the north on Sunday, early next week, looking cold and unsettled and wintry, with low pressure through the country and wintry on the cold side of the jet stream. If that stays cold into the second half next week as well, with winds continuing from that northerly direction by Friday, just beginning to bring some less cold air in from the west, back in wind into more of a westerly. and that takes us up to day 10. Excuse me, where it is a little bit milder, but reaching high pressure through the country and trying to reach that high pressure up towards Scandinavia as well. And then the ECM looks like that again, all much of a muchness through the open next week, cold and wintry. Devil's in the detail as to where the snow is going to be, of course, but generally a cold, wintry outlook for the middle part of next week. Second half of next week, some less cold air coming in from off the Atlantic, turning milder, possibly with a band of snow moving eastwards, then introducing milder air from off the Atlantic. Day 10, look at this, trying to build up some high pressure towards Scandinavia. So that's a little bit different compared to the other mild output, but high pressure trying to get going by day 10 towards Scandinavia there. This is a precipitation forecast based on that ECM run from Meteo.com. So plenty of rain coming and going initially over the weekend, the showers turning increasingly wintry into next week. Quite a wintry outlook as well. That Tuesday could be some snow even through the Midlands, parts of southern England, for example. So again, we've got to get close to the time frame for the detail on all of that, but there is wintry possibilities for the early to middle part of next week. And then it starts to turn less cold later next week, a snow event, as a band of rain comes in from the Atlantic, hits that cold air, turns readily to snow, before going back to rain as the milder air tucks in from off the Atlantic. By day 10, looking largely drier as high pressure builds through the country. We can't show you the options on the table within the ECM ensembles today. Again, unfortunately, they haven't updated at the Icelandic Met Office. As soon as these come back online, we will bring them to you. So the final thing we can look at is the CFSB2. These are 500 millibar high tolerance breaking down into week periods. The first week period takes us from a trap to the 18th of January. The coming week looks unsettled and cold. Low pressure to the east, high pressure reaching through the Atlantic, winds going into that cold northwesterly to eventually northerly or northeasterly direction. Week 2 is the 19th to 25th of January. High pressure then builds in across the country. That could produce frost and fog. All change. Week 3 is the 26th of January to the 1st of February. As low pressure returns, high pressure sinks southwards, so going milder and wetter and windier in the final days of January. And then week 4 will be the first week of February. It's the 2nd to the 8th of February, with low pressure still in off the Atlantic, so it's still largely mild, wet and windy. And if you enjoyed this video, then please do you like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. And why not drop a comment and let us know what you think about this and all of our videos. I mean, thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. There's loads and loads going on in the next video. I hope you enjoy it. Loads going on at the moment. So colder next week and a wintry outlook. Going to have further on that in the next few days. And of course, the bigger picture is this potential sudden stratospheric warming sometime towards the end of January or the beginning of February, and we shall keep you updated. Tomorrow, we're going to have the 6 a.m. upload. We will have a 10 to 14 day as well as January Friday, so keep checking back to the channel. There'll be a live stream after 10:30 as well in the evening tomorrow. Keep checking back to the channel for all of the content for this 10 to 14 day. That's all for now, and thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and bye for now.